The Yeti, Bigfoot, Kraken. These mythical creatures captivate and inspire explorers all over the world, but is it possible for them to really exist? Where would they live? What do they eat? Could one just be the dong of an overly excited whale? The mind wanders, yearns for something supernatural, but is there proof? Well, today I'm going to take a journey with you. The path to uncover the truth behind the Yeti. So I'm an avid Nepal enthusiast, if that's a thing. And although I've never been, I hope to walk the circuit trek someday. The Annapurna Circuit Trek. It's a massive backpacking route in Nepal. Hugely popular. You go through multiple towns that you sleep in along the way. You're climbing thousands of feet in elevation a day. Sounds like a friggin' dream. Amazing. And I first got introduced to the country by Uncharted 2. The best game ever. I didn't even know what the country was until I played Uncharted 4 and they had a poster of Nepal on the wall with the name right on there. So I looked it up, did a ton of research, and fell in love with it. As you can see, I have a Nepal poster right there, another one here, and prayer flags for my slightly less impressive trip to Everest in Orlando, Florida. I even tried painting the Himalayas, but got discouraged when I realized anything within a 50-foot radius is just outside my skill range. I want to note that no matter how much I research and love the culture, it's not going to make up for the fact that I didn't grow up anywhere near it. So if I say something offensive or wrong, please let me know. I want to learn. And with that being said, we will first explore the sightings. The legend of the Yeti began in ancient Himalayan folklore, and the earliest mention I found being Alexander the Great allegedly demanding to see one in 326 BCE. There's nothing to confirm whether he did see one or not, but fun fact, just 3 years later, he downed a bowl of bad wine at a party and died. Otherwise, most sightings are a lot more recent, the earliest I've found being in the 1830s when an Englishman and some native hunters had been frightened by what they called rakshas, meaning demon. But it was really just a monkey outside of the region they'd known the species to reside. Then, in 1951, Western culture's interest reached its peak when alleged Yeti footprints were found and photographed for a newspaper. National Geographic later covered this article by flying to Everest Base Camp and giving an update.
Near here is where Shipton took his remarkable photograph. The image that started the West's obsession with the Yeti.
It was late in the afternoon on November the 8th, 1951, and Shipton and the expedition's doctor, Michael Ward, were working on a glacier a couple of miles from here. And then suddenly they came across a set of huge footprints that went away from them down the glacier.
Can you imagine completing the grueling 8-day trek to the near highest place in the world and some dick flies in with a helicopter to completely fuck up your camp? Then, while only stepping a few feet from the helicopter, they cover a story that happened miles from there and then leave within minutes. With this short video mostly just recapping what we already knew the story and not much else in terms of importance, it can be hard to prove or disprove the sighting. Another account involves an infamous hand and scalp of a Yeti that a monk had put on display in a temple. The story goes that this monk was meditating in a remote temple when a creature entered and began to serve the monk in his worship, eventually becoming a disciple. When the creature died, the monk removed its hand and scalp and put it on display in the temple for worshipping practices. Years later, word spread of these presumed Yeti pieces, and an oh-so-kind man by the name of Peter Byrne reportedly stole pieces of the artifact after the monks who owned it refused to allow its removal for study. After taking the pieces to India, the bones were then given to actor and Oscar winner James Stewart, who allegedly smuggled the pieces out of India, bypassing security by hiding it amongst his wife's undergarments. This was later confirmed by Byrne, who published a letter from Stewart in a general book on Nepalese wildlife. A later study of the hand conducted at London University in 1960 concluded that the hand was a closer match with a Neanderthal, and in 1991 Unsolved Mysteries came to a similar conclusion, that the hand was near human. Could it have been from an unevolved tribe of Neanderthal-type creatures that have been separated from uniform society for, hundreds if not thousands of years? Maybe this channel is just a spin-off of the show Ancient Aliens now. Maybe what the creatures actually evolved to was living in such harsh conditions where us humans could not possibly survive. But who knows? Let's look deeper. So the Yeti physique. This was a bit tougher to find. Most websites will just give the most bare bones description that you could really just guess yourself. One source says the Yeti is allegedly around 6 feet tall and very muscular, weighing between 200 and 400 pounds. Big Big range there. Its teeth are said to be incredibly sharp like sabers, but it's also supposed to stand up to 10 feet tall. It's said to be bipedal, though its appearance is more like that of an ape, just all over the place. All these varying descriptions can be explained by the roots of the Yeti. The book Ghosts, Monsters, and Demons of India states that Tibetan lore describes 3 main types of Yeti. The Nyama, standing at 15 feet tall, has black fur and is the largest and fiercest. They are also said to smell bad. The Chuti, which stands around 8 feet tall, is said to be bear-sized and walk on all 4s, mostly preying on cattle. They reportedly have a lot of stank on them as well. And the Rangshim Bombo, which has reddish-brown fur and is only between 3 and 5 feet tall. The Yeti you have to fear least if you met on a dark Himalayan night. Some say. Some say it. I don't say that. I don't want to meet that shit at night. It may look cute and playful here like a Disney movie. I don't know if that's true in real life though. Also lives in generally lower altitude at 3,000 to 3,500 meters above sea level. There is no information on what they smell like though. It's bad, I assume, but don't quote me on that. Now we also have to look into what normal animals exist that could have been mistaken for a Yeti in some of these sightings. Bears would probably be the most likely, especially to be mistaken for the Chuti Yeti. The Himalayan brown bear has been specifically mistaken for a Yeti on multiple occasions. They have a huge range of elevation, residing from 9,800 feet to 18,000 feet. Another animal would be snow monkeys, or the Japanese macaque monkey. Macaque. That's where your mom's mouth was last night. Although they're rare anywhere near the Himalayas, I still really wanted to mention them. They do look a lot like the Rangshim Bombo Yeti, but they mostly reside in the Japanese Valley of Hell, where they're really just living their best life, bathing in the many hot springs in the area. It started when one of them apparently fell into a hot spring and realized how nice it felt on their bum. Others soon joined, and now they've given up on whatever monkeys naturally do, like throwing poop at each other and stealing phones from Asian tourists. Now their life most closely resembles that of the Himalayan monk. Have you seen anyone more calm than that monkey right there? Letting their friends gleefully fondle away without a care in the world. We got sidetracked, but that was adorable. I had to show you. As we look through more monkeys to find a possible contender for Yeti, there's a few, but it's difficult to explain the high altitude sightings with these. We have the Northern Plains Grey Langur, the Arunachal macaque, and the Kashmir Grey Langur. All decent contenders, but all live way below the supposed altitude where most of these Yeti sightings took place. Now you could quote the 1830s sighting where they did mistake a Yeti for a monkey back then, but they were at a very low altitude. With a lot of these other sightings, that doesn't make sense. Monkeys need vegetation to survive. They're not going to go to an open, high altitude desert. There's just no reason for it. And no monkeys living even close to that altitude have the reddish-brown fur like the Rangshim Bombo. So our only option would be a bear for this. Now we need to discuss where a Yeti might live, and for that we'll need to look much deeper into the massive mountain range that is the Himalayas. The Himalayan mountains cover over 230,000 square miles or 595,000 kilometers of land and span through 8 different countries. And there's an ever-increasing demand to travel there, with just the area around Everest bringing an average of 35,000 people a year alone. You'd think that the whole mountain range has been explored by now. But some mountains are entirely off limits due to political and religious restrictions. At first I saw just 4 mountains in the Himalayas that had never been summited, but more and more kept popping up. Bhutan, which owns around 36,600 square miles of the mountain range, restricted mountaineering on any peaks higher than 6,000 meters in 1994. And that's with their top 10 highest peaks reaching well above 7,000 meters. And then in 2003, in deference to spiritual customs related to Mahayana Buddhism, all climbing was stopped. With so much terrain unexplored, who's to say there aren't undiscovered cave systems within the mountains? Caves have long been used by Buddhists for meditating and building temples, but they could also make perfect homes for unknown creatures that are living up there. There are a few patterns in the rock formations of the southern Pakistan region of the Himalayas that consist of impressive limestones which have not been searched for caves. In northern Pakistan, there are various unproven reports of caves in the region. And finally in India are 5 major crater karst springs, which after hydrological tests were done, suggested the existence of large-scale stream caves. And that was indicated by the very fast flow-through times, but they couldn't gain access to the caves. Although this area is relatively low in elevation, it shows what the largely less explored upper Himalayas could be hiding beneath the sheer rocky peaks. While caves are the most likely places for a Yeti to reside, I want to explore the more far-out theories that are based on the Buddhist religion.
To tell the story, I am in the most comparable place to the Himalayas that is near me, the Santa Monica Mountains. And if you don't know where that is, it's here, in Grand Theft Auto 5. In Buddhism, Shambhala means pure land, a place with no crime, no war, and they say the gates only open up to a person once in a lifetime, and that is if they're worthy. In the city resides Buddhists who study and attempt to preserve the world's wisdom. A prophecy, one that emerged from Tibetan Buddhism about 1200 years ago, states that outer society will become infatuated with new technologies and superficial possessions, allowing an unfathomable destructive power to rise. Now, when the city of Shambhala's forces come into play specifically is a little shaky. Some sources say that only when society's hanging by a thread as we know it, Shambhala will send forces in to secretly infiltrate the government and take over. Other sources say that when the world is down bad enough, Shambhala will reveal itself, and their 25th leader, Rudra Chakran, will defeat all of the degenerate world rulers in control and take over. One source even specifically stated this would happen in the year 2424. But all prophecies seem to end in an apparent golden age when Rudra Chakran and Shambhala will lead the world. Buddhist text also states that Yeti-like creatures guard the land from outsiders. Now, could these be Neanderthals that were cut off from society a very long time ago to guard the land? If this would make sense of the monk and Yeti disciple story from the beginning of this video, a creature that recognized game and did what it had always known to do, serve the monks in their practices. So yes, many cultures have stories of Yeti sightings. Many cultures also have stories of entrances to Shambhala, coincidentally in the same areas. In Russia, it is believed there's an entrance in Beluga Mountain, and just like the Himalayas, this area is also home to numerous Yeti sightings within a few miles. So there's quite a few coincidences, and it really feels like it's all adding up to one thing. I mean, if we're not going to talk about Shambhala actually existing, I do think it's still possible that Yetis exist. Shambhala is obviously a bit even more far-fetched depending on your theory. But after all of this research, I honestly think that if Yetis exist, then Shambhala must exist too. And the other way around. That's it. Peace.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure?